Hello, AAPS Strategic Partner. This is Nancy Shore, Director of Strategic Partnerships and Community Engagement for Ann Arbor Public Schools. I want to welcome you to the 25-26 school year, and I want to give you a little bit of an orientation, especially if you're new. This will get you up to speed on all of our policies and protocols, and if you are returning, this will have a refresher that will give you some more information. Okay? Okay, let's go. So, one of the things that we have available to any AAPS strategic partner is our guide, and this is the guide for strategic partners. It has everything that you're going to need, and you can see it at the a2schools.org/strategic partnership site, and it's also linked in this document, which you will receive via email. So what are we going to talk about today in this brief orientation? We're going to give you a little bit more information about Ann Arbor Public Schools, share with you how you can connect families to community resources and scholarships, talk very briefly about how volunteers work at Ann Arbor Public Schools, share with you some of our district policies as well as procedures and protocols, lots of P's. And we're going to finish up with making sure you know where you can find some learning and training resources. So, I first want to start by giving you a grounding in AAPS. So first of all, who is here to help you? Well, of course, if you are part of a school community, you'll be working with any of your contacts at the school, but at the district level, because you're a strategic partner, you have a couple of different people helping you out. There is myself, of course. My name is Nancy Shore. I have been at Ann Arbor Public Schools for coming on 8 years. I've actually got 2 kids at AAPS. One is starting middle school and one is starting high school. So I am on that journey with anybody who's doing that as well. And I am here to really help with any questions you have about working with schools, connecting you, providing you with contacts. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Helping me out this year is Claire Seelig. She is actually an AAPS alum, and she is at the University of Michigan School of Social Work. And so she'll be helping me out with all kinds of different projects during the course of this year. And then finally, my supervisor, Jenna Bacalor, who is the executive director of the community division, which includes strategic partnerships. It also includes the Rec and Ed department, which I'll talk more about. And she also oversees health and well-being for the district. Okay, let's continue. So in addition to knowing about who's helping you, I want to give you a little bit more information on demographics at Ann Arbor Public Schools. So here is a slide that talks a little bit about our different student demographic groups based on our fall 2024 enrollment. And as you can see, about 1 in 8 of our students has special needs or an individualized educational plan or IEP. About 1 in 4 comes from homes impacted by poverty. And about 1 in 9 speak a language other than English. And what's interesting about this and what might jump out at you is a lot of people are surprised at how many students are impacted by poverty at Ann Arbor Public Schools because we tend to see Ann Arbor as a pretty affluent community. Well, what I would say to that is that we are also a very economically diverse school district, and we are also a district where, depending on where you are, depending on where the school is located, there's going to be a higher or lower percentage of students impacted by poverty. So, for example, more schools that are on the east side of town tend to have higher percentages of students impacted by poverty, whereas schools that are closer to downtown or more on the northeast side have a little bit less of that. Also interesting is that our numbers of students that have special needs and also that speak a language other than English continues to increase. And so, of course, that means that there are more resources and support for those students, but also keeping in mind that it really means that we have a huge diversity of different types of students and needs in our schools. So I have linked on this slide, and you can check it out when you get this slide deck, that you can look at all of our student enrollment information from our fall 2024 report. So if you want to learn more about Ann Arbor Public Schools, and I know you do, you can do that in a couple different ways. So we have our main website, a2schools.org, and it was just revamped this past year. So you can find information about a school that you're working on or just information about the district in general. We're also, of course, on social media. And then finally, we actually have a district news site. And what's really nice about that is it has all kinds of videos and articles about what our teachers are doing, what our students are doing, and what's happening at our schools. So definitely check that information out. So, a couple of important links that you want to have at your fingertips, and these are all in the Strategic Partner Guide. One, of course, is you want to know who staff are. We've got a staff directory on our website. There's also a support team spreadsheet that I create every year that has specific staff on them, and that will be linked onto this page. Finally, there's a couple other quick links to places on our website that you might frequently visit. And so that is what you can find on that link. And then finally, very important, of course, is our district calendar. We do have a little bit of different ways that we're treating early releases this year. So that's something to check out. And then, of course, being aware of when our breaks are. So now I want to talk a little bit about one of the great things about being in Ann Arbor and with Ann Arbor Public Schools is our Ann Arbor Community Rec and Ed department. And so this department provides all sorts of support for our students. It, of course, provides camps as well as after school classes. It provides before and after care at most of our schools. So both of these may be resources that if you work with families would be really interesting to them. And something really important to know is that if a student qualifies for free and reduced lunch or meets certain income guidelines, they can actually get a scholarship through Rec and Ed to participate in a class and for before and after care. So definitely check that out if you think there's families that might be interested. So now I want to continue with talking a little bit about the resources available to families that may need it at Ann Arbor Public Schools. So first thing to know is that we have a whole web page dedicated to community resources, and that can be found at a2schools.org/community resources, and this is updated constantly. And this is something that you can direct any family to. You can look at it, and it is really free and low cost resources. We vet them. A lot of our strategic partners who offer programs and services are on that page, so that's definitely something to know. And then also other places you can find scholarships. We do provide some scholarships for graduating seniors. So that is at our a2schools.org/scholarships. And then our Rec and Ed department, like I said before, does have some scholarships available for families. So these are all great links to check out, especially if you're looking for something for a family. Now I want to touch a little bit on volunteering at Ann Arbor Public Schools. And what I want to say is that all of our district level recruitment of volunteers happens at a2schools.org/volunteer. This is our hub for anybody specifically who wants to volunteer at any school. They don't have a specific school in mind. You may be a U of N student in a course or class. It may be a retired citizen who wants to come and help us out. They can all go to a2schools.org/volunteer to fill out an application. And we have a couple of windows, and this is typically for our frequent volunteers. So this is weekly volunteering, and that can either be September through October or January to February, which is when we place volunteers. And if you or your organization is interested in volunteering but is not able to commit to volunteering weekly, please contact me because there might be other opportunities for you to volunteer. Okay, now I want to touch on our policies as well as district procedures and protocols, the three Ps, if you will. So let's start with district policies. So, of course, important for all of our staff to know, and I want to make sure everybody here is aware, that we do have guidelines for how to report child abuse. Of course, all of our district staff are mandated reporters. So if we do note an instance of child abuse, then we are going to deal with it. You also, as somebody, if you are working with our students on a regular basis, make sure that you know the signs of child abuse. And there's a link here that goes to a site at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services where you can find out more about some of the signs of child abuse. And then if you are observing something, so you might have a different relationship with the student than we do, then please say something to your AAPS staff contact if you have a contact that you work with regularly, or if your own organization has any sort of protocols for reporting child abuse and neglect, please make sure to talk to your supervisor or someone that you work with at your organization. And then finally, of course, whatever happens, we want to make sure to keep it confidential and only share with those who need to know. Another important policy that we have at our schools, and it's a federal policy, is called FERPA. And FERPA is basically a regulation that says we, as individuals working with students, do not have parent consent to share any personally identifiable information or educational information about a student outside of the school day. So unless you have parent consent, we want to make sure that you are keeping information that you're hearing about students, whether it be their birthday, whether it be if they have a disability. You keep that with you as you're working with our students in our schools. But if you do have a consent to have that information shared elsewhere, then follow those privacy protocols and make sure that you are keeping it as confidential as possible and only using it for educational purposes. Okay, now I want to talk about those other two P's, procedures and protocols. So if you are coming into our building, we have a couple things that you'll need to know so that you can get in effectively and safely. First of all, please, please, please schedule your visit with our schools. That helps us know to expect you, make sure that anybody you want to meet with is there. So always make sure that you let us know ahead of time that you're thinking of coming. Next, whenever you visit a building, always find that main entrance. All of the doors are going to be locked during normal business hours, so you're going to want to ring that buzzer and let them know who you are so it's easy for them to know, also based on the fact that you've scheduled it, to expect you and where you're coming from. And then finally, after you get into the building, you're always going to want to go to the main office because there's a visitor entry procedure. You're going to want to have some sort of photo ID so that they can take that ID and they run it through a system and get you a iVisitor badge. So make sure you do that every time. And there is a link for more information if you want to learn more. So now, if you are in one of our buildings, hopefully this will never happen, but if there is an emergency, we do have certain protocols that we want you to follow. First, of course, is always to remain calm. The more calm you are, the calmer the other students that are working with you will be. All of the staff in our schools have been trained in emergency procedures, so please follow whatever staff says. We also have emergency signs on our doors to all of our classrooms that talk a little bit about what you need to do in different emergencies, so check those out. And then finally, please, 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 please do not post on social media because that is going to be really not great in terms of having our schools see things. So there you go. Moving along. So now if you want to promote an event at Ann Arbor Public Schools, that's wonderful. If you have an event that is free and open to any family to attend, you can email me the information. What I'm looking for is a short little blurb and then a link to a flyer or a website or somewhere to go. So we're not going to be able to print things out, but we're happy to share them in our weekly updates. So please make sure to send them along to me. So I finally want to send you out the door with a little bit of information about our learning and training resources that are available to any of our strategic partners. So if you go into our strategic partner guide, you're going to see a link for resources for learning, and it's going to have all kinds of great different resources on what we teach, some of our curriculum, so that can help you get a little bit more familiar with the different things that we're teaching at our schools. In terms of training resources for partners, so every fall and every spring, we do a training for many of our student-focused partners that provide wraparound services to our students. And so we capture all of the slides from those presentations and we have them in our guide, so you can definitely get that. And speaking of training, we will be conducting a fall training for any of our strategic partners, specifically and mostly for the ones that are working most directly with our students. And you'll be seeing more information about that. And that typically is happening in early October. So we have covered all of the items I wanted to cover today. So I want to thank you so much for committing another year to supporting our students in our schools. And I hope that I see you out there in the world. And until then, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.